Dear Clash Guards, I confess my emotions have been a mess. Cause you changed everything we ever knew. From witches to poison and the Queen walked too. Whoa, I've been wrong, I was wrong. Been at town all night, way too long. Getting hogs and Valkyries. I'll push that button and believe in you again.
Welcome to episode 87 of Pineapples and Thorns, and today I want to welcome back the one and only Fado to the pod. Welcome back, Fado.
Aloha.
Aloha. So this isn't going to really be my normal upbeat Yahoo Clash of Clans podcast episode, but I'm super glad to have you back aboard to help me unpack what's happened.
I'm here to put the dark cloud on all the feels.
You are the dark cloud in my universe. So quickly jump through CFF news. Not a stellar week for many of us in Clash of Clans. SCCWL started last Saturday on June 1st, and on June 3rd, we got blindsided by a major set of balance changes from the good folks at Supercell. As of this recording, Redthorn will demote from Champs 1 and TGF Rising will demote from Champs 3. Now, the bright spot is the Rated will promote to Champs 3, lucky them. So let's deal with the elephant in the room. Supercell dropped, I'm going to term this as a nuclear bomb on us this past week. They nerfed the Root Rider hard. There were a ton of nerfs and a few buffs in the June balance changes, which I will run through. But I really need to get this off my chest because it's been really bothering me all week, and I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way. Why did Supercell feel that, first, a major nerf was needed, and particularly why did they need to drop this just as CWL started? It seemed to me that the game was in a pretty reasonable place, playing in Legends, Random Wars, and Worlds. I was not seeing non-stop triples. There were quite a few 2 stars and even 1 stars. The bases seemed to be holding up. Obviously not so much in the esports side of things, but in Random Wars and Legends, much more so. I really cannot understand why they would introduce a signature troop at Town Hall 16, then nerf it, not just once, but 3 times. And not just a small nerf this last time, they hit it with a further 50% nerf on DPS. And this begs the question in my mind, does anyone on the dev team actually play the game and test the troops before they release them? And if not, then why aren't they testing them with their content creators group? We know there's a lot of very skilled players in there. There's also many skilled players who play not perhaps at the esports level, but find a group that's kind of in between. There's many people who are skilled, but they're not casual, they're not pro level. Get them to do the testing. The whole thing seems extremely poorly thought through on the part of Supercell, and I feel like they've managed to completely divide the competitive players from the more casual side of the game. And I wonder if the game can recover from this.
Well, one of the things that I think in a podcast with Itsu, like the first one we ever did, one of the topics was, okay, well, if there's an update, a new troop or something coming out, like how long do you get to test it and all that?
Mm-hmm.
And Itsu kind of answered, his answer made me feel really stupid. But that says a lot, right? Because there's precious little in my job that I can just roll out to people and say, here you go, here it is.
Mm-hmm.
We have a highly invested group of users of what I'm building, and we're not even going to really let them see it until you get a sneak peek, and then there it is in 1 week. You don't get to touch it.
Yeah.
So Supercell has this cohort of people, including Itsu, where, the content creator community plus pros and all that, but, they don't really get to touch it. And
Right.
That boggles my mind. It's like, guys, slow down. This is broken out of the box. What are we doing? Like, they don't really get the chance to do that. And it and here we are.
Here we are with a lot of angry people. There's a lot of happy people on the more pro side of things. They're super happy that the Root Rider's been nerfed. The people who play the game more for just enjoyment, that's the people in Redthorn and people down to the super casual side of things. There are a wide range of people. They got this troop. And let's face it, Town Hall 15 was terrible for those of us who are not counting tiles and sketching plans and all that. Here was a breath of fresh air. And literally the game was fun again. And yes, they were so overpowered. But it begs the question as well, why did they even bother to keep this troop in the game? They have the code, just delete the code out of the game. If the troop is that broken, get rid of it. It's, and again, it circles back to the fact that they never did obviously allow a group of people to test this thing properly, including themselves. I really, my mind is blown by the fact that they would introduce a troop that is so obviously overpowered, and especially when you combine it with things like the overgrowth spell and the hero equipment. Town Hall 16 itself is perhaps broken.
But how do you recover from it? They're up against a built-in building limit. The map seems like it can't grow.
Mhm.
It's not like they can't just take that out. I don't think they can.
No.
Because there've already been so many other adjustments around it that how do you unwind it? Sure, there's like version control. I don't mean to get too nerdy here, but theoretically, but at that point, we're almost rolling back to Town Hall 15. You know, um, to quote Arrested Development, they have a bit of a mess on their hands.
Well, that's just what I was going to say. Is it seems almost because they did so many changes when they introduced Town Hall 16. From the hero equipment to the Root Rider to the Overgrowth spell, and then they keep introducing new hero equipment every month or every other month. With the lack of the availability of ore in game, it's really hard for people to get all their hero equipment upgraded. It just seems, like you say, for lack of a better term, a real mess. And perhaps some of this stuff should have just been much more slowly introduced to the game. I'm not a developer. I don't know the logic behind it. I'm not sitting in, the planning rooms at Supercell, but you just think someone would have spoken up and say, hey guys, you might want to just slow the flow here and, just trickle some of the stuff in so it's not such a game breaker.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things to me is that, if you take a step back and think about what the past X years of Clash have been, pick your number, that's been a cash cow, right? They haven't
Mm-hmm.
had to do a heck of a lot. They've and granted, coming up with the game in the first place is the big lift, right?
Yeah.
Enhancing it is not as big a lift. And they've been able to get away with here's a new town hall, here's a new town hall, new troop, new spell. Okay, things are getting a little more complex, blah blah blah. But again, like with the monthly seasons have been going on for years and years and years, and just milking the cash cow, right? And suddenly
Mm-hmm.
you look down, and this happened in the AMA, right? Why do walls cost basically 2.5 Legends days to get 2 walls? Like if you consider like both the elixir and the gold,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, oh wait, that doesn't seem to make much sense. Well, duh, right? Duh, it doesn't make much sense. So,
Nope.
I could have that calculation wrong. Don't hold me to it. But the point is, it's like they've been just kind of, I don't want to say they're coasting. Obviously, they're hard workers and such. But where is like the big picture on this? Like, who's looking at the big picture and suddenly, oh my God, this is ludicrous. Some of this stuff, like the walls are stupid expensive. It takes so long to upgrade and afford a new cannon, right? It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
my goodness. And then you multiply that across all the other buildings. It's like, woof. So, I'm not a gossip monger. In fact, I haven't loaded the game in some time. But, just from the outside looking in, it's like, well, why did Darian leave? It's not like I'm not looking for gossip there. Maybe he was just like, this has kind of run its course. And maybe it's for him, or maybe he thought the game had. I don't know. And it's not my place to say, and I'm not putting words in his mouth at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm speculating and unfairly, most likely unfairly. But at any rate, it just runs its course. It's like, man, I'm still doing this. Everything still takes so long. You have to be a slave to the game in certain respects to continue advancing to keep up with new town halls at an accelerated rate, while the cost of everything is going up. And I'm talking about the end-game economy there.
Right.
But meanwhile, the gold pass went up. Sure, there's a little better perks, but that starts adding up. Few people that would be listening to this podcast are running a single account, I'm guessing, right? I'd say the majority of the people still in the game are running more than one account, and little by little, that adds up.
Definitely. I know I've parked most of my accounts. I just can't play them all anymore. I love the lower town halls, but they're just going to stay where they are. I've got my 15 and my 216s that I still play. And that's only because I'm in clans that I care about the people and I want to still be active there. You know, how much longer that will continue, I'm not sure, because
People
it's
are
just,
starting to
yeah,
peel off a little bit, aren't they?
they
Uh,
this whole thing has left a really bad taste in a lot of people's mouth, and some people near and dear to me have indicated that, in the next week or so, that they plan on quitting the game. They were having fun with Root Riders, and having this drop out of the blue on us
so
was unfair.
we're certain those aren't test balloons, right? People aren't just out there saying, you know what, I want to see how sad people are going to be.
No, no, the people who've said this are, once they say something like that out in public, they stick to it. So, it's unfortunate, but that's the way it is.
Yeah,
Um,
and you know what, I don't really begrudge any people, because at the end of the day, like, there are a lot higher priorities for all of us than a I hate minimizing it down to a tablet game. A tablet
mhm,
game that I played for, I mean, God knows how long, but I played it for a very long time.
yes.
And everyone's still involved. If you got a Town Hall 16, you've been playing a long time, right?
Yeah.
And so, after a certain time, you start to get frustrated, and you're like, yeah, but if I even take a month off, am I going to miss out on new hero equipment? Am I going to miss out on a scenery or something? That's when you really like take a step back and be like, at least in my case, I say, it's not the end of the world if I don't get that scenery. And suddenly you're gone for a week, or you're on vacation,
Mhm.
you're gone for 2 weeks, and it's like, I'm fine without it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like the game, like, and I am like on a hiatus, and I don't know if it's permanent. I haven't missed it. I've missed people. I've missed horsing around in chat, although I get my fill of that in Discord. So I'm still tweaking people in Discord and all that. But at some point you're like, it's taking more and more effort to keep up with the Joneses, even though all of us are in a certain mind space, right? Even though you guys are doing esports, right? But I don't think you expect to win $500,000, right?
No,
So, you know, and
we're
it's like,
doing it because it's fun.
yes.
That's why.
And you're seeing what the pros do. It makes you want to do it. I get that. Like, and it's like that format is fun, and it's a little bit more pressure, sure, but it is more fun. You're out of your comfort zone. You're challenging yourself, and that part's really great.
Mhm.
But the long and short of it is, if it's such effort just to keep up, whether it's farming, whether it's legends, whether it's buying gems, at some point you're just like, man, my race has been run. It just has.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and like you said, with the scenery and the skins and all that, the cosmetics are really nice. And I saw the Western scenery. I thought, this is probably one of the best ones they've done. But I'm not buying it.
Oh,
I'm done.
I
I'm
missed
done
a really
buying.
good Western. I love Western stuff. So crap. Way to go, Kat. They sent you. They sent you to get me.
I'm dragging you back in. But there's this little herd of yaks that run along the side, and I thought, oh, that is so cool, and it fits in really well with the theme of our esports team, because we are our spirit animal is the yak. So I thought, wow, that would be so cool. But you know what? I'm not buying it.
Mhm.
I and I'm not buying the event pass,
And
and I don't know if I'll buy the gold pass next month.
it's really, I don't think, everyone, people that listen to this generally know you,
Hmm.
Kat, and that's saying a lot. Generally some people are like, maybe I'm not going to get this scenery or whatnot, but you have always been such a supporter, have always enjoyed that side of it. And we
Hmm.
tease you about, oh, well, yeah, is it going to take Kat 1 hour or 1 minute to buy the skins and the scenery? But for you to actually put your foot down actually speaks volumes.
Yeah.
And it's just, and one of the interesting things that, as I've been sitting here on the outside looking in for about 2 months now, is that when I came back about 4 years ago, it wasn't that hard to catch up from Town Hall 12 to get up to 14. I was
Hmm.
playing catch up a fair bit, because
Yeah.
I left as a like a rush 12 just so I could donate sieges or something like that. But it did not take Herculean effort to catch up. But now, with the rate of things being released, and I'm some people might say, "Are you crazy? Like, more content is bad? Well, perhaps because how do you even begin to catch up?
Oh
How do you
yeah,
even begin to catch up these days if you take 6 months to a year off? I don't know. Like that's so much equipment, so much ore, so much of everything.
exactly. It's and even for those of us who have been playing, I have not been purchasing the ore packs that come out. Yeah, I have to pick and choose what I was going to buy, right? So I've been farming like crazy, and sort of making progress on the equipment that I needed for my particular attack, which was Root Riders. All of a sudden, Root Riders have been nerfed, and people are saying, "Well, you should try this attack and this attack." And I look at the equipment that they need to use with it. I haven't focused on leveling up my giant arrow or the fireball for the warden or the spiky ball. I've been focused on other things. And yes, they're slowly coming along, but it's going to take me months to get there.
Hmm.
And by the time I get those upgraded, there'll be more equipment and I'll need to upgrade that as well. And it's just like even though I was a max 15 and when I went to 16 with all the equipment, I just feel like I can't keep up.
Hmm. And for you to say that, right? Again, this is not me picking on you or making fun. Like I go for cheap jokes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
All the time. Yeah, ask my family, right? But it speaks volumes as someone who has been such a loyal player of the game. I'm really reluctant to call you a customer, but at the end of the day, that's how we're viewed.
Yes.
But you have been loyal as anyone anywhere in the community, to Supercell and this game. That that speaks volumes.
Yeah. And it's part of the reason that I do this podcast is because I love the game. I've always loved the game. I love the communities. I love how it's, sort of opened up new worlds for me, lots of friendships. And to see them kind of basically killing their own product really hurts.
Yeah, and but they at the end of the day, Supercell is owned by Tencent.
Hmm.
Tencent is publicly traded, believe in China at minimum, Chinese owned, and that's who Supercell has to impress.
Hmm.
They don't have to impress us. They just need to get more money out of us to keep Tencent happy. And
This is true.
that's a very callous way of looking at it, but that is 100% true. We can say, what about your loyal customers, blah, blah, blah. Well, if they look at you as a revenue stream, end of the day, right? I know
Hmm.
there are humans there. I know there's stewards, there's Benedarian, etc. However, they only exist to make money for Tencent. And I know that's a really cynical way to look at this, but it is at the end of the day the bottom line.
Definitely. Yeah. And even though, I know that, it's still because you care about the game and you've invested a chunk of
Mhm.
your life into
And
it.
we care about those people I just mentioned, by the way.
We do.
Stewart and Darian are good people
They
who
are very
work
good people.
who advocated for the game, who
Yeah.
advocated for the players. And so
Yes.
none of that is to besmirch the people, but at the end of the day, the company views us as revenue streams.
Definitely.
Has besmirch ever been used on this podcast, by the way?
I don't believe so.
Do we have like a little dingy bell sound effect for when I drop like some stupid vocabulary word?
I'll have to ask Mama Sids to insert one. So Stuart, speaking of Stuart, he's the general manager of Clash of Clans. He did appear on the Reddit Ask Me Anything last Thursday, and I tuned in to post my questions to try to get some clarity on it. And when he was asked why they dropped the balance changes in the middle of CWL and the World's qualifiers, the response was that they ran late. But they wanted to get it them out sooner, but they're very sorry they ran late. And so I did ask why not wait till CWL was done. There was no response to that. And again, I just feel that it was a complete lack of consideration for the player base. And that's speaking from assuming that there was some level of care about their player base there, not just the bottom line. Maybe they're so focused on, okay, well, we need to get these out, but are they just focused on making the pros happy, or do they care about the rest of the group that buys their gold passes and event passes and stuff?
Hmm.
I mean, they did also introduce a bunch of nerfs and buffs for the lower town halls, which kind of had me scratching my head because I'm not really sure why that was needed, but
Well, that part was a little bit interesting to me. They're listening to players of all town halls, so
Hmm.
good for them. But I think at the end of the day, like, that was a massive thing to be taken away from people who love using that troop. And I don't think it's dead. I just think zero communication, middle of CWL,
Hmm.
is really crummy. I don't know. I'm sure there's a really good reason for that. But Redthorn is not a pro clan and never has been, right? We
No.
we would always willfully admit we're casuals. We're serious, but we're not at that level. And we're not the only people like that have made it to Champs One and have stayed in Champs One. But that just, I mean, if you were able to look across, if you were able to like look across all of the other groups for Champs One, I'm sure Redthorn wasn't alone, and I'm sure we're not the only bunch of players that were like, "Oh, come on." Now, I was not when I stopped playing, and again, this is only 2 months ago. I wasn't
Mhm.
using Root Riders all that heavily. I still found ways to make the Super Hogs work, and I think the Hogs got a buff.
Yes.
So I would highly encourage people to. I don't know. I don't want to volunteer a name to everyone. Go hit them up. Grom had Super Hogs pranked on Town Hall 15. I was using them still with not as much success, but success at Town Hall 16. That's there. If you're still in and you still love playing, those Super Hogs are still very, very strong. So
Yeah.
it's not like I'm out here producing content or producing videos, but you know, the methods that were pushed out over a year ago were still working 2 months ago. And if Hogs got a buff, as long as the base meta hasn't changed wildly in 2 months, probably got a shot there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There's definitely lots of different attacks that are going to be working. I know King Redbeard is crushing it with some kind. He calls it the duck attack or the quack attack. He got from Duck over at the Good Guys. He's just really crushing that, and he's tripling all my bases. But again, it's the equipment that he's using. I don't have leveled up, and for me, I think my anger stems more from the fact that not just it's not so much that the Root Riders were nerfed, like whatever.
Hmm.
If
I
that
know where
needed
you're
to be
going.
done,
I know where you're
it's
going, and I agree with you. Go
it's
ahead, though.
it's the timing, the complete inconsideration of dropping it after CWL had started. Worlds, whatever. But I personally would probably have held off running Redthorn this month in CWL if I would have had some kind of inkling that they were going to drop some balance changes, simply because it would have allowed everybody to adjust their strategies. Even if they would have waited a week to drop it, we could have said to everybody, "Hey, you might want to like have a different type of attack in your back pocket because Root Riders are going to get a nerf and it's going to be a big one." So I think people were just caught completely unaware, and it showed with the number of 1 stars we had. By the end of the week, we were sort of adapting and picking it up again, but it was too little, too late. So yeah, it's just the communication, and I think that is something that's always been an issue. The communication between the company and the player base is, why wouldn't you let people know that
Hmm.
something like that was coming? Like, why is it a secret?
Yeah, well, so what was it? It was 50% DPS, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see him like saying, "Hey, here's a quick balance change," and it being like 10% without people being terribly upset.
Hmm.
But if there's a 50% reduction in DPS, you gotta communicate that. So there has to be more to the story. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
But it is a bit like an ambush, and a bit like an ambush on a certain sector of players.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the pros have been not real thrilled about that troop from the get go, right? They're like, well, the casuals are now having hit rates that approach ours, and booyah,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't, so what would be the reason to nerf it with so extremely in such a short period of time at the time they did it? Like,
Hmm.
there's got to
There
be more to
was
the story.
definitely, and I know there was a huge outcry on social media about it from the pro community,
Hmm. Oh,
and
absolutely. Like the
I'm
pros were
sure
very vocal.
extremely, and not just vocal, but like nasty vocal. There was a lot of nastiness about anybody who stood up to support the troop. Myself included. I was attacked on social media because I kind of
Because you
stuck up for
support
the.
the troops.
Well, I support it. Well, I support the casual
Sorry.
player wanting to use those troop. I thought, we're having fun,
Let it be
and
known.
let it be known. And I was viciously attacked. I think
Boy,
behind the scenes, there was probably a lot of pressure behind the scenes by the pro community on Supercell to make some changes. And this leads sort of into some other stuff that we found out during the AMA, which I'll run through. There is going to be another update coming in June, around June 17th, which will introduce a hard mode option for friendly wars and friendly challenges. So the hard mode would be used in tournaments like the world qualifiers and stuff, which begs the question again, why did you bother nerfing the troop 50% if you're introducing a hard mode, which will make the pros happy?
well, Magnus walks around in hard mode all the time, so
That goes
like,
without saying.
yeah, he'll be happy too.
But if you're introducing something that will allow the difficulty level to be set, which you know obviously if you're going to use that, you're going to need some skill, then why not let the rest of your player base be happy? And if they want to run around smashing everything with a 90% hit rate, let them.
Just, oh goodness. Were the details of hard mode released?
No, it was just a teaser, kind of. Oh, we're going to bring hard mode. I think I believe Itsu has a video out about it, but no firm details yet.
You got to think it's a way of adjusting the DPS of defenses and the troops. Like maybe
Hmm.
it's you take 20% off the DPS of the attacker attacking troops or something. But at the end of the day, we've seen a lot of even meme videos where it's not so much the root writers, it's the damn equipment that has
Hmm.
broken the game. You can get
Yeah.
heroes almost taking out the entire base. I've seen heroes and bats take out the entire base in some videos without even deploying a single troop, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um, you kind of, I don't know. I think they targeted the wrong thing, and people are grossly unhappy. And it's not the hard mode better be more than just troops. It better be, hey, maybe you go no equipment on the heroes, right?
Or
Maybe,
just original equipment. You know.
yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what that does. It'll be nice to be able to use it in friendly challenges because you can kind of test yourself and see if an attack is actually working or if it's just the equipment.
So, Kat,
Uh-huh.
so if you're mad enough to consider like taking a step back from the game, what becomes of this podcast? Are we going to start doing like gardening or maybe world events, pop news? What is it?
Well, there's
What's
always
your other
squad
passion?
busters, I guess.
There you go.
I think there's a number of people who are enjoying that game a little bit more than Clash of Clans at the moment. So, further nerfs to the root riders are possible, they said, in the form of housing space adjustments. So, and I have in my notes, insert eye roll here.
Oh,
They have 3-star rate targets for each town hall level that they would like to see. I also have a 3-star rate target that I'd like to see as well. Like
I'm
to at least
sure.
triple once in a while. Uh, and you were talking about walls and stuff. Apparently, in this next update, there's going to be a number of time and cost reductions to encourage lower town halls to move along in the game faster. Well, my advice to people who are wanting to get to Town Hall 16 is like, don't rush. Enjoy the lower town halls because
Yeah.
16 is not as much fun as you might think it is.
Oh, and I'm already out here correcting myself now that I have my right glasses on. The
Uh-huh.
Hog Rider buffs are only for like 13 and below, so never mind.
That's right. Yeah. Apparently, they have finalized the theme for Town Hall 17. If there's any of us still around to play the game at that point, they're working on what the Town Hall weapon will be. And an idea that they're considering is to merge the Eagle and the Town Hall, but that is not for sure yet.
Well, one of the things when reading that was not clear to me was
Hmm.
whether it would actually be merged. Meaning, so let's say the weapon changes to an eagle like
Uh-huh.
weapon. When they added it, it was a little Zapparino at Town Hall 12, right? It was like
Yes.
something Tesla. I can't remember, Mega Giga Booty Tesla, whatever it's called. But then it went to the Inferno, and it's not like they were like, well, we'll take all the Infernos out because now we've got the Giga Inferno. So that wasn't clear to me that it would be merged. But um, in order to get multiple monoliths, maybe you do merge it. So-
Just turn out the lights now. It's like, oh god. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of detail. The answers were pretty vague. There's no firm commitment, and I know you're extremely disappointed on this, for Builder Base or Clan Capital, which is Clan Capital for again another one of their little side things that they were so hyped about, along with Builder Base. Yes, I know this has been the year of the main village, which they've thoroughly messed up, but it would be nice to see some more levels on Clan Capital because I'm running out of places to put capital gold. We're dusting off all our spare clans to stash the capital gold at.
yeah, you
So,
know what? I appreciate them adding, the builder base, the clan capital, those types
mhm,
of things over the years. They're trying, right?
yeah,
But ultimately, you do kind of wonder, like, man, what if some of that effort was put into um, this, that, the other with the main base?
yes,
That's all in retrospect. Hindsight's 2020, right? Maybe they were trying to pull in other players because with Clan Capital, like you could be a TH friggin' two, and still use max troops in Clan Capital as long as you've got the Clan Castle rebuilt because it was during one of those periods where you could afford it when things were 50%. But so, but that was never going to draw people in. Like when was the last time they made an ad that featured anything other than the main base? Like never.
mm,
Like I
never,
mean, the builder
yeah.
base stuff when they were like they were sitting on the beach, the hog rider and the hog and the hog rider and the barbarian were looking out onto the
Oh, I
sea,
remember that. Yeah,
and the pirate ship came in and all that. That might have been the last one.
yeah. I'm pretty sure I saw Tarless on that beach there somewhere.
Love you, Tar.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that it's on their wish list of things to do, but they're trying to dig themselves out of a big hole right now. Apparently, they're still working on the clan recruitment in-game issue. They're saying that will hopefully come later this year. And there's been lots of complaints. Actually, there was a lot of complaints in that AMA about Supercell support and the actual complete lack of real support or a way to contact anyone who could actually help them.
Well, back to an earlier point, support costs money.
Yeah. Well, they're working on it, was the response. And they agree
Yeah,
that. They
yeah.
did agree that
I'm
at
working on
first.
my PhD too.
We'll get there eventually. Yeah, but I mean, support from Supercell has always been sort of a running joke. You try and contact somebody in game, and yeah, we know their support is on the other side of the world from North America. So you'd put in your little question, and you come back the next day, and you'd get some kind of answer. Hey, Chief, have you tried this? It's or if you had a serious issue where you couldn't access an account, or there was an issue with your account, you needed to ask. You were afraid to do so because you know the questions that they ask. Who remembers when your first gem purchase was? You'd have to go back to look in all your financial records to find out.
Yeah, and by now, like, I mean, typically institutions throw away stuff after 7 years in terms of like
Exactly.
document retention. I operate my house like that, right? I can't go back and get a credit card statement from 2013. The game
Yeah,
has been around that long. Now,
it has.
I do think I once went back into my Google account because at the time I was an Android user,
Hmm.
and found my first gem purchase. Just because in case anything happened, I wanted to be able to say, "Oh, there it is." Okay, so
Yeah.
I was able to find it that way, but um, yeah,
Well, if you're running multiple accounts, like how would
mhm,
you do that? And nowadays, if you're purchasing stuff off the Supercell store, well, you might purchase, you know, a sack of gems on your main account and a sack of gems on that. It's not so readily available information, right?
mhm.
So let's see.
Well, the nice thing is, I usually get good support from the Southeast Asian bot farm that I usually buy my accounts from. So,
Right.
they give me like, all right, guys, when was the last time you guys got together and bought gems? And then, the first time on account number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they get together, they go back into their little meeting room and they come out and they hold their hands out. I got to pay them a lot of money, and then I get a baloney answer anyway. So.
So I do have a couple of questions for you here.
A patty melt. It made a really good lunch today, Kat. I had a
I'm very
patty melt.
happy.
Yeah,
And the
homemade.
pretzels.
Yeah, and some side pretzels because I'm out of
Excellent.
chips. Yeah, I'm eating healthy today.
So, question for you. We are expecting another piece of equipment, most likely for the Royal Champion, based on the in game event, which I know you haven't seen, or is still painfully slow to come by. What can Supercell do to increase ore in game, do you think,
Um, so
other than selling it to us?
the reward tracks need to be filled up with ore. I think a lot more. So if you buy the gold pass again, it's kind of pay to win. But that's actually somewhat attainable. I mean, even if you don't buy the gold pass, maybe throw some more ore in the free track.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they've always been reluctant to say, well, you used to be able to, you can get elixir collectors, you can get, the elixir storages and blah blah blah. And once you get to legends, you get a bit of a, you get some from there too, right? So is there an ore storage, like an ore house they could put in the game?
We all see it in the ore house.
Or house, that something like that. But one of the other observations, I'm not gonna call this a gripe, but one of the other observations was as town halls continue, the costs of things continue to grow.
Mm-hmm.
It never felt like Legends rewards for getting 70% and up on a base ever, like that max reward never seemed
Mm-hmm.
to move the needle much. Like it always, once it was set, I don't remember it really ever being increased. So maybe there is a way to increase that for your standard, your dark golden elixir, but is it worthwhile to somehow make it to where maybe in Legends you have ore available? Because let's face it, it's kind of broken below Legends. Like it's so easy to farm below
Mm-hmm.
Legends. And it is a little more like the rewards and the amount of elixir and gold available on Legends bases. You're still capped at 8 hits a day, so that part has always been broken. So putting ore out there for during farming raids would be a nightmare. Like it actually fits a Legends model better to help people gather it faster.
Yeah, I like that idea. But and Builder Base has a gem mine, so I mean, you're even getting gems out of a mine. Why can't you get ore out of a mine?
Yeah, that and the only other real obvious solution is maybe increase the ore rewards for war hits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, they've got to do something because as more and more equipment is introduced for people coming up to 16, it's like you said, it's a nightmare to try and get to what we like to consider max. And I
Mhm.
think it's getting to be to the point where it's almost impossible to be max. Do you like the idea of the hard mode for friendly challenges and wars? And do you think this will discourage more casual clans from putting together teams for things like the world qualifiers?
Um, I don't know, right? It's really a hard thing to determine, Like what do you think? I want to hear your thoughts.
My thought, I think plans like SOG will still want to put together teams because they are a much more competitive type of clan.
Yep.
But, people in clans like Redthorn and the Rated and Phoenix Reloaded, they're not going into worlds for the Redthorn group. I mean, there might be the odd player who wants to really push themselves. But if
Right.
if it's going to be to the point where you have to learn Lao or something in order to triple, a lot of us are ground attackers and we we haven't learned Lalo yet. So it's a slim chance I'm
Yeah.
going to learn it now. And so for me personally, I don't have the time to dedicate that much effort to something like that. So I think their player pool will end up being smaller, and maybe that's what they want. I don't know, but we'll see what happens. And, it is kind of nice to see different clans making their way through it instead of always the same two or three groups of players making it to
Mhm.
worlds. It's when our friends ODS and Mac and VB and those guys in Turilla Tabaton made it to the World's Finals there. It was exciting because they were kind of average players, slightly better than average, obviously, but they pushed their way through and they worked as a team and made it through. And it was refreshing to see someone like that make it that far. So
do we need to edit that part out in post-production?
nah, they love us.
Cat called you average. I think I the larger point stands, right? They were new to the pro scene, and they showed that putting your head down, being creative as all get out, right? Because no one dreamed of using super archers like that as consistently as they did.
Yeah.
And to shutter themselves off from the world and FC after FC after FC figure out something brand new, like that was really refreshing.
Definitely. And you could see, I mean, we know for a fact they worked so hard to get there. But they knew that, they were doing it for fun. They always kind of made fun of themselves as, oh, we're just using internet bases and all that.
Or
So
just average.
we're just average. But it was fun. It was a fun journey, and that's something I'll always remember for them. And it was refreshing. So yeah, I hope to see people dedicating themselves like that and making it through. Because otherwise, eventually you're going to have the current group of pro players. They will move on to other stuff, and there won't be another group coming up. So hopefully they can do that. If you could add one thing to the game right now, what would it be, and why would it be a Coca-Cola statue?
Yeah, the brown river of Coke Zero flowing through the bases.
Yeah, well, you know that Pepsi is no longer number 2.
I know. Really, it's just now there's a quantitative way of backing up our assertions of just how far off the game Pepsi is.
This is true.
Got passed by Dr. Pepper, which is, you know, I mean, it's not like Dr. Pepper's out here reshaping the world. Like, um, it's not like they had to try and come up with some silly marketing thing like Crystal Dr. Pepper
But
to try and remain, somewhat relevant. I mean, it's only relevant because people think it's okay in one Discord server out of the many millions. So, yeah, hats off to you, Pepsi. Finishing third in a 2-horse race. That's admirable. Um, but back to the point, like it always like felt like, why is it 100% necessary to have Discord and all of these external tools to make the game really work? And this is where I really want to tip my cap off over at Joel and Mark for the work they're doing, because all of the things that are going on with the API that they're able to hit. So in other words, Clash has all of this information available that the competitive Clash network has been able to turn around and make it something really extraordinary. Why? And the one thing I'd like to see Supercell do is look around all of the things that are going on and what can be brought into the game to everybody's benefit. So you've got all of the communication ability of Discord. You've got all of the statistics and scheduling and all sorts of things, information that CCN is coming up with. Like, it'd be to Supercell's benefit to look around and be like, well, I mean, I'm not saying, well, Tencent ought to look at acquiring that business or anything, but look what regular people that are not affiliated with Supercell are able to do for the game. And they ought to be questioning, why didn't we think of that? What can we do like that? So yeah, maybe I am here. I'm not a pitch man for Mark and Joel. But darn, man, they really
should hire you.
Yeah, or they should pay them for whatever they got.
Yeah. Well, I think this is something that we've always seen in the game, dating back to the days when there was the potlucks and the community leagues. It's the players have done things with the game and really developed an amazing side game to the main game. The old CWL, the potlucks were a lot of fun, the old days of trying to match clans based on war weight. And I always remember, people like Goblin Slayer with their papers and ODS, calculating the war weights, and then you spin and you hope that you match the clan that you want to spin.
Mhm.
Supercell taking some of those ideas and, making, the ability to do friendly wars and morphing the community CWL into their SCCWL. So they should probably take a look at what Mark and Joel are doing with the CCN and try and figure out how they can work with them, partner with them to use that in game.
Yes. Sorry, I don't have
Great,
anything to add to that. I
great
disagree.
answer. Great answer. So okay, so let's jump into the top 5 things that we think Supercell needs to address in game. What's your
Mhm.
number 5?
Well, as someone who hasn't played in 2 months, I think they need to address. I think they need to take a really hard look at their own numbers over the next 2 to 3 months and see suddenly are people playing less, because
Mm-hmm.
that's you can put out a survey, you can do this, you can do that, and that can easily be manipulated, but at the end of the day what's really going to speak to them is, their own numbers. How many people are still playing?
Agree. And that's kind of my number 5 as well. Look at the balance for casuals, not just the pros. The casuals spend as much, if not more money than the pro players overall. So I think you need to not forget about them.
Hmm.
What's your number 4?
My number 4 is something we touched on a little bit earlier, and that is or. Because as someone who has been out of the picture for a couple months now, I'm sorry if I'm going on and on about that. I should stop prefacing things with that. But um, if something lured me back in, like there has to be a way to catch up, because it used to be you could catch up just with dark and gold and yeah, sure, gems, but dark gold and elixir, you could always farm that. Or good luck. And I say as
Mm-hmm.
someone who is doing all his legends hits, being in every war, doing CWL, I was falling behind and getting gold passes, right? I was
Mm-hmm.
still falling behind on equipment. It was being released really quickly. So, there has to be a way to get more ore more quickly. Otherwise, people will be like, throw their hands up and say, what's the point? And I put myself in that bucket.
Yeah, I agree. My number 4 is they need to properly test troops before releasing them and also fix glitches before dropping nerfs and buffs.
Well, that was my number 3. And again, back to circling back on that point, right? Like, why should I feel stupid when I'm asking a pro slash heavy duty content creator about how long they've had a chance to get their hands on new features in the game?
Yeah, yeah,
Then
I agree.
all you're doing is risking not ready for prime time things, or getting people super excited about a new feature and then nerfing the ever living hell out of it, which they did this time.
Yeah, I agree. So that was your number 3?
Yes, it was.
Okay. My number 3 is an oldie but a goodie. For clan mail and clan descriptions, I this has always been a pet peeve. I need to be able to edit it without retyping the whole thing.
Um, yeah, that's always been a thing, right? I think it's been a solid few years since someone
Mm.
accidentally went in and updated the Red Thorn description, right?
Yeah, don't touch it.
Yeah, at this point, you should just put a rose or something, call it a day.
Exactly. What's your number
um,
2?
my number 2 is again something I touched on about CCN, and that was find a way to flesh out some of these, whether it's tournaments, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's your live broadcast that you can click through in the user interface within the game to go watch. Like there has to be a way for them to continue to weave in all of these things. What's the hit rates? What are these people typically using? Um, and sure, that's like giving intel to the pro community, but what darn pro community doesn't have that intel readily available, right? Even in pro real sports, right? It's like, well, Joe Blow, the first baseman, makes like, I don't know, he makes a few errors, or you know, Jack Doe, the hitter, he's one that he struggles with high fastballs, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
that's all out there. So having that sort of information like more readily available, and having streamers, and I think they've done a good job of getting that stuff into the streamers' hands. But there's no reason like we couldn't in game be like, oh, you're going against such and such, and they're 80 or I'm sorry, 80% of their attacks in the last 5 wars have had at least 4 root riders or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. My number 2 is communication. They need to communicate better with the community. They have all kinds of in-game tools available to them and a ton of content creators that they could use. They have social media. They need to stop being afraid to let their players know what is coming. Like, you don't have to give us all the details, but let us know. And that is something, it's always been a pet peeve of mine. I think communication is critical to making something a success. So stop being afraid to talk to us. What's your number 1?
Number 1 is, I don't think we directly touched on it, but the long and short of it is better understand or assess how players are playing the game. Because pros are going to be pros. They'll take the tools you give them and they will find ways to smash.
Mm-hmm.
But if players are in love with certain troops, you can't just nerf the hell out of them at a moment's notice. And this kind of goes back to, it touches on the how many players are still playing, right? You make this kind of change, you understand this is how players are playing, right? They know the troop usage numbers and what is the impact to your overall numbers, right? You're going to see people peeling out or peeling off the game because of this, I think. And
Yeah,
that's because they are just not really in touch with how players are playing the game. And I mean players. Everyone knows how the pros are playing the game. Everyone.
yeah,
But that just seems a little crazy to me to make such a large change. It just shows they're not really in touch with, the people that are probably responsible for the largest chunk of revenue for this game.
totally agree on that. My number 1 is clan recruiting, and I know they said that they're going to deal with it later this year. I have very little faith that they're going to deal with it effectively. So I just want to say to them, if you can't figure it out, then just bring back global already. And I said the G word because at least the average clan had a way to talk to potential recruits and look at their bases and decide if they would be a good fit. They could install some kind of filters, but do something. Fix your game, Supercell, because you're killing it.
And for Cat to say that should be the real takeaway because
Yes.
they have not had a stronger backer.
I'm passionate about the game. I love the game. I'm not a pro player, but I think I represent a good cross section of the player base. I play with people from very casual to quite skilled, and that's the same message I'm getting from them is what we've talked about here, that this is a big mistake on their side. So let's leap into shout outs. Fado, do you have
I want to
anything?
shout out Fuzzy, who's making a name for himself in all of the familiar circles, but maybe not for the best reasons. His advocacy for Pepsi is a little bit unbecoming, but he can be forgiven. And Ghost Rider, um, what a good pair to have, and continuing to help lead the rated. Keep up the great work, guys.
Yeah,
Um,
awesome.
and of course, finally, you Cat, for your advocacy and this is brave, right? Everyone knows who you are. They really do. And they listen to you and they appreciate you. And for you to be this, let's just say upset about this, and for you to vocalize it and put it out there on a pod is a bit brave. So, and I'm not saying, you should expect blowback. But I think it's gotten to that point. So shout out to you.
Thank you. I want to shout you out and thank you for coming on the show today to listen to me vent and to give your view of the matter. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a little ugly. I've been able to talk you down a little bit, but
Keep me off the ledge. It's good. I need someone like that. I also want to shout out all of my friends who've been impacted this week and all the people in Redthorn and TGF and the Rated. Really appreciate each and every one of them, and I'll keep playing the game with them for as long as it's around, as long as any of them stick around, and hopefully nobody quits too soon. So thank you all for listening.
yeah, that was more of a threat, wasn't it?
Don't you quit on me. And thank you everyone for listening. The CFF is a family of clans who love to play various games such as Clash of Clans, Clash Royale, and others. You can send questions or comments to us on Twitter at RedthornCOC. To get more information on our clans, events, and podcasts, join the CFF Discord at discord.gg/clashfiles.
Dear Clash Gods, I confess my emotions have been a mess. Cause you changed everything we ever knew. From witches to poison and the Queen Walk too. Whoa.